Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my weekly cult situation report. I am Daniela, scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership. And welcome if you're new. We have a lot of fun here. Every week, I do a roll up of everything going on in the world of cults and my world of cults. And of course, we will be talking about the cult of MAGA. Welcome to week 17 of the Trump administration. I wrote a book called Uncultured about growing up in the Children of God religious cult and going into the cult of the US Army. And amazing news, I wrote another book called Culting of America. It's done. I have a manuscript. Oh, and it has a 36-page bibliography for all those fun detractors that say, I never use other people's stuff. Okay. It comes out January 20th, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. I'm gonna do a big cover reveal at some point, and we'll have pre-sale information at that time. We do not right now. We do have a fundraiser linked if you are interested in investing in this part. We use the fundraiser so far to do the audio, and next we'll determine if we get to do some like travel stuff, because I'm paying for most of Culting of America, just by selling copies of Uncultured. Eu não sou brasileira, mas eu sou americana com coração brasileira. I'm live on TikTok and somebody asked me if I was Brazilian, and I was like, well, I'm an American with a Brazilian heart. Okay, so welcome to week 17 of the Trump administration. I know it doesn't seem like that long. Doesn't time slow down when you're having fun? It's not going well for Donnie boy, y'all. There is a reason that the first 90 days of a presidency are so important. And that's because it basically takes 90 days to launch any kind of opposition, right? So when it seemed like the checks and balances were not holding, they were. They just take longer. He still has, I believe, like a 98% failure rate. Like he has an A plus in failing. I truly believe that like he wants to be a mega dictator. He wants his name to be said with the gravitas of those famous bad men. And I really hope that the legacy we're going to give him is that we just say his name with derision. Because, like, he tried to be so evil, but he was just so bad at it. Okay. The Supreme Court, unsurprisingly, let the trans ban continue to go through. I believe they sent it back, but, you know, it can continue to be legislated. I do believe the military will ultimately be allowed to kick out whoever they want to kick out, because the military is not part of our democracy. It is literally a cult that we have decided 1% of our nation is just going to be in order to protect us. And then we are definitely going to throw them away afterward. This is the week I have started to receive reports of veterans getting letters just saying that their disability has been shifted from 100% to 40. And by the way, that's a difference of enough money to kind of live on versus really, really not. He came for Medicare, which, you know, this is supposed to be third rail of politics, and he's just trying everything. And I hope for some of these people that are going to lose like in-home care, these older people that voted for him this is going to be the crack in the brainwashing. Although I believe the budget was voted down and by Republicans, so that is significant. Because anytime the Republicans want, Congress can stop this. They can impeach and remove anytime. So, what's going to be the tipping point, and how are we going to push them to it or hold them to it? Okay. But I would like to say, for the record, I think the trans ban is evil and terrible. And as humans, when we ban people from things, it's usually a step, a part of dehumanization that leads to ultimately killing them. I am very personally proud of the military's progress. I was one of the first women on a deliberate ground combat team, which I talk about in Uncultured, which led to the combat ban coming down. An experiment I believe the bros in charge expected to fail because they believed their own pseudoscience about women. Once they discovered that it didn't matter what gender you were to do combat, they also realized it didn't matter if they could tell what gender you were. And trans people have been serving in the military now for almost a decade, I believe. I was very proud of the military last time he did the trans ban thing, that soldiers roundly were on the side of their trans colleagues. Because you know what? It's hard to hate up close. Once they started fighting with women, they realized women could fight all along. Once they started fighting next to trans people, they realized people could fight all along. Oh, but definitely the only thing that Pete Kegsbreath has done in the military is shilling for feminists, and I couldn't love it more. So here's what happened. Men made up the idea that you had to be a certain level of fit to do combat, right? Like ancient armies not having physical fitness tests. Okay. Came up with the idea that you have to be physically fit to do combat. They made up that idea, and then they said that men have to be this fit and women have to be this fit. They made up those ideas. They made up the idea that women couldn't do the male one. And regardless of any time we proved that we could, they just kept saying, no, you can't. And we have, no, you can't until you do it on the same scale as the men. And we have been saying, bring it. And he has finally brung it. Made combat. You want to go into combat arms? You have to pass the male PT test. It's not gender neutral. It's male. But you know what? Women are going to do it. Women that are going into combat arms are already passing the male PT test. And again, they've been asking for it for a long time. Nobody has had the ovaries to do it yet. But Pete Kegsbreath, he's got the ovaries. I'll give him that. Yes, I'm talking about PT requirements. And I can't wait, and I will say this every time I talk about this, like active duty women, please have fun just smashing the men and then rubbing their faces in it. And please put that on video and share it with us. Oh, you know what's so cute with your Navy SEALness? When people can't do something, you don't have to make regulations or legislations to ban them from it. You just don't. I had to make not one regulation rule in my house that Mr. Knitting Cult Lady couldn't nurse Knitting Cult Baby. Okay? Real rich to ban women from something because you're so afraid that you are too hysterical and emotional to not mess up combat if a woman is next to you. This is why men shouldn't be in the military. And then you want to come saying there are no women SEALs. Yeah, because y'all are too afraid to let them compete that they will succeed. We've already been through this with Ranger School. We've already been through this with just being in the Army in general. Shut up and sit down. Oh, I was recording on YouTube that whole time, so welcome to a whole category of my videos called Bro Shutdowns, where the emotional and hysterical men think that they can millsplain and mansplain me. Newsflash, they cannot. Newsflash, they have not written best-selling books about their time in the military either. All right, so logistics. Everything you are afraid of, please run it through a logistics check. Okay? They're coming for our weapons. It's in Project 2025. Here are facts. You cannot have a full dictatorship, a full totalitarian nation with an armed population. And we, big difference from any other nation that has ever been close to this track, have 500 million firearms. So you know what? I did the math. If every state collected 1,000 a day and never skipped a day, it would take 54 years just to collect all of the weapons that we know about. People would literally, the collectors would literally die of lead poisoning before they finished collecting all of our weapons. It is not possible. There are things that are possible that he's doing politically that no one should be doing. There are things that are not possible. America cannot be invaded. America cannot be ruled by force. American borders cannot be closed. And it is not possible to ever disarm America. Oh, it's not possible. Plus, we are not willing to let them go. And then people have been asking me, like, should they get weapons? So I'm going to explain what I call weapon herd immunity, which is what we have in America. Okay? If military operations were going to be conducted in America. No, first I'm going to start with individually, it doesn't matter what weapons you stockpile, right? Preppers, redonkulous, right? You're not going up against one chick in the US Air Force and winning, okay? But if it's all of us, we the people win. So if you are trying, and by the way, it's very easy to beat the US military. Lots of us are experts in how that happened. You just have to fight the US military not the way that they want to be fought, meaning insurgent tactics. Where was I going with that before? We're not going to be invaded. We're not going to be disarmed. And he can't go that far with an armed population. He can make the country awful, and he is. We may never get the respect of the world back, and we may never have deserved it, but, like, there's only so much you can do, right? Oh, this is what I was saying. If you are going to plan an invasion into America, you have to assume that every American is against you and every home is armed. We couldn't even win in Afghanistan with 30 million people and the assumption of 1 AK per household. I also remind you, because I think this will be comforting, that there is much more combat experience outside the military than inside the military. And our exact area of expertise is how to beat the American military using low-tech insurgent tactics. Trust me, you lose 10 friends to an IED ambush. You know how to do that now. Oh, and now I'm going to tell you my drone story. Because I remembered that I was once the brigade intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance manager. That's the person in charge of the eyes in the sky. And it was written about on my non-classified officer evaluation. So what I can tell you about drones is I once wrote a book about drones. And so here was the story. First deployment. None of the captains want the job of brigade ISR manager because we're an aviation battalion and they don't think that matters. So they make the little second lieutenant do it. And don't realize until they're writing her evaluation how fantastic it looks to have had a major's job and done it successfully. In addition to which, I wrote a very long, very in-depth book about drones. Fast forward a year and a half, and I am back in Afghanistan. I am the captain at the brigade level who's in charge of all of the intelligence. And we are looking for a book about drones. Because funny thing, they invented secret Google, but not secret SEO. So you can't find anything. You have to know someone who knows someone who has the link. So I had to go on quite the wild goose chase. It took a long time, like weeks, a long time, right? And I was constantly having these senior men being like, do we have it yet? Do we have it yet? Do we know who did this? Blah, blah, blah. So finally we get it. I don't even stop to open it. I just run upstairs to my battalion commander's office. He calls all the other senior men in. They open it up. Boom. Written by Second Lieutenant Daniela Mestenak. And this is why I think it's really funny when bros like yesterday are like, Google predator drone. I'm like, Google brigade ISR officer. Nobody that knows anything about drones is talking to you about drones. They're incredibly, incredibly secret. But also, definitely not unbeatable. I find that the civilian idea of the military is half Civil War and half sci-fi movie. So, hopefully, I'm helping y'all understand a little bit better. Okay. Single family cults, 1-1 cults, and internet cults. I realized belatedly, which I will be doing later today, I need to write a good author's note explaining that in addition to commune cults, the cults everyone thinks about, the cults like Children of God that I grew up in, there are 2 other acknowledged, and I'm adding internet cult as a 3, so 3 other types of cults that we see. The 1-1 cult, which is more often called an abusive relationship, and the single family cult, which is more often called nothing. Where you are being raised by usually a combination of a narcissist and an enabler, both of whom are abusers. And I find this to be the most helpful thing that I tell people on a day-to-day basis. Like, if you are reading my book or listening to my stuff or going through Culting of America and you are relating your childhood to a child in growing up in the most extreme cult? Yes. Yes. And part of why I do this is that I have the validity of growing up in a cult that everyone agrees is a cult. But I see you and I see that your trauma is also exactly cult-shaped. Okay. So yeah, putting a note about that. Love to talk about it as much as possible. Oh, look at that. I was just about to talk about the cult of AA. When AA says they don't have leaders, they're lying. It's just a lie. It's not debatable. It's just a lie. AA is a registered nonprofit. You can Google how much their people make. AA has regional, national, and international services, which they call world services, which is the same thing the gross pedo cult called their leadership, whom they also tried to hide and deny having. Okay, so right now, my question to all of these big OG accepted cults, AA, the US military, Jehovah's Witnesses, Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons, Evangelicals, Baptists, Catholics. If you're not a cult, why are your survivors coming to me with cult-shaped trauma? Anytime someone has an answer to that. And then AA loves to be like, no, we know we're a cult, but we are a cult that's helpful. I'm like, well, then it's really rich of you to get mad at a cult expert for calling you a cult, isn't it? And oh yeah, there are no good cults. Okay. Sorry, Captain Mestenak is spicy today. It's because I finished my book. I finished my book. Okay, I'm going to tell you about that at the end. We already talked about the difference between us and other authoritarian states. It's 500 million weapons if you're new. They're trying to make part-time and disabled labor not worth it, right? That is what going after people in very low tax brackets is about, because cults are all about labor. And they either want you working 80 to 120 hours a week, or they want you at home making peace. We're not going to take it. The budget bill got voted down by Republicans, which again is significant because I remind you, anytime the Republicans want our Republican leadership, they can impeach and remove. We can be done with this circus. In my book, I do not talk about how other countries are less culty. I just talk about how America is culty. Question to all the not cult groups. Okay, on to the Diddy trial. It really, really upsets me that this is not called a Schmeck's cult more often, because that is absolutely what it was. Now I'm being overstimulated and too hot with my hair down, so give me 1 second. Sorry, YouTube, I just keep forgetting to pause the recording, so you just get to see all my in-betweens. Okay. Cassie gave a grueling testimony as a victim and really focused on how hard it is for victims because they have to face their accuser. And that is very, very hard. I have once had to testify against somebody. That's the topic of Un-American, my next memoir. And I got to do it by phone during COVID, and I'm very, very glad. I think the difference between a cult and a gang in America is often race and class, and I think that plays in here. I think that when we look at white men doing what Diddy did, we say cult, or just call him Hugh Hefner. And then when we look at black men, we're like, ah! But also don't give it almost like the validity of like cult. It's complicated. Talked about 1-1 cults. Why didn't she just leave? Dr. Yanya Lalich, who is a sociologist, cult expert, has a book called Bounded Control, has a theory that she created called Bounded Control to explain why people don't leave, or why people who seem to be completely consenting adults are actually not giving free consent. Yanya Lalich is my favorite cult expert. She has also spent a lot of time in court defending cult members and explaining how brainwashing works, which is a good thing, I believe. So the Okay. So Yanya Lalich is bounded choice, right? She says when you have a group that has a transcendent mission, systems of influence, and systems of control, this usually means written legal policies versus culture. Okay, systems of influence, systems of control. I'm the one that decided to show it like a box, okay? Transcendent mission with your space travel, systems of influence, systems of control, and a charismatic leader. You are now in bounded choice. I say this about the military, especially a deployment. Okay, if you're going on a military deployment, you are about to have a cultic experience. You have transcendent mission, you're removed from the world, you have systems of influence and systems of control. If you have a very non-charismatic leader, you just have a garbage bureaucratic experience. If you have a transformational leader, which is defined in the leadership research as a relationship where both the leader and the follower are better because of the leader-follower relationship. Women, unsurprisingly, are better at being transformational leaders than men. And so if you have that, you have like a transformational experience. It's still kind of a cult experience. Your labor is still being trafficked, but transformational experience. And if you have a charismatic bad leader, you have a cult experience. And this, to me, like when I actually looked and actually was like, no, the military deployment fits every part of cults, I immediately understood so much more about soldier suicides while deployed, including my own attempt, right? Imagine you're in the middle of, you're 6 months into the worst cult experience you can imagine, and you have 6 months left to go. And there is no way out for you other than ending your career or ending your life. Six months is a long time to try to survive in that situation. Ask me how I know. Update on the Shen Yun lawsuit. This week, NPR wrote about the lawsuit that was filed in New York by two dancers from Shen Yun. The suit alleges child labor, and the article states that the suit was filed last month in federal district court in New York on behalf of Sun Zan, 32, and Cheng Qing Ling, 28. Look at this. They're suing for labor. Cults are always about labor. People get stuck at the what. You were doing what? You justified what? And they fail to get to the why. And the why is always to get your labor. And if you want to go after your cult, go after them for labor. And remember, the IRS got Al Capone. Okay, in a recent interview with NPR, Sun and Cheng said they felt isolated from their families, too afraid to speak up, and endured both physical and psychological harm. To this day, they said they are recovering from the physical and emotional toll of their childhood. And this is one of the reasons that cults are so geared toward performance. And all cults are doing performances, especially children, because the promise of the cult is always a lie. But sometimes the cult's product is sandwiches, Yellow Deli, 12 Tribes cult, right? Sleepy Time tea, Oneida silverware. Sometimes it is legitimately entertainment. Produce Joaquin and River Phoenix and perform twice at the White House, Children of God, or Shen Yun. And all cults are exactly the same. Every expert has said this. I guarantee you these children had an exact same awful, awful kind of experience as you have had me write about. You have heard me write about in Uncultured. And if you haven't yet, hey, it's on Spotify Premium now. You can just listen for free if you're a subscriber, and I still get paid. It also has a 4.9 rating on Audible. I'm very proud of that because that was the hardest thing I've ever did in 5 days. There is a comment in a cult subreddit this week that touches on an important issue for people leaving high demand groups, which is how to learn to think for yourself. The poster notes that I am unable to think for myself, make decisions, lack critical thinking, and make choices and answer simple questions. And people ask me, how do you learn that again? And my answer is the decade of deconstruction. Dr. Lalich talks about this. So does Alexandra Stein, and so do, I believe, Margaret Singer. So all the female cult scholars that I really admire talk about this, like, you've lost the ability to make decisions. You know, and like when I think about that, I think of Michelle Obama talking about her time in the White House in her memoir. And she's like, for 8 years, right? She didn't carry a purse. She didn't carry a cell phone. She didn't carry car keys. She didn't drive herself anywhere. This is what it's like when you come back from a deployment. Like when you first deploy, it's so nice. You don't have to do errands, right? You drop your laundry off somewhere, it comes back to you washed and folded. You go eat food that has already been cooked for you. You don't have to go grocery shopping. You don't have to drive anywhere. And that is because they want your labor 12 hours a day, 365 days for a whole year, right? So by the time you're ready to come home, you're like, I can't wait to just drive my car and go grocery shopping and like not live this batch life. I did not write my book in 5 days. I recorded my audiobook in 5 days, and it was incredibly difficult. And I learned a lot about PTSD. And I will be recording the audio for Culting of America. My book that's out, my memoir, is Uncultured. Okay. So the decade of deconstruction, right? But just know, like, it's normal to feel like you don't know how to make decisions anymore, right? The whole thing about cults is they give you an entire framework for exactly how to live your life, right? And they tell you the promise of every cult is if you live your life in the exact way, you will have perfection, right? After some space travel. So, of course that's a lie. But you have to like deconstruct all of that. And it can be terrifying to make your decisions for yourself because the cult has made you terrified. But something I tell people that is often helpful is like, you weren't any likelier to have your life work out great. You weren't any more protected from bad things happening to you. The cult told you that you were, but you weren't. So you have. It's a very important part of my book that both of my co-writers tried to cut out, but I put back in because it is a very important part of my life where someone told me to get the F over myself. We're in the Army, so tough love. Daniela, you're not as different as you think you are. And that was very important to me because I had been giving myself kind of terminal uniqueness, right? Of course, nobody can ever understand me. I grew up in a cult. Of course, nobody can, blah, 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 right? And this is a very important thing because what cults do is make you feel special. And the truth is, we're not special. This is what a lot of white people are going through right now as we live through the cracking up and pulling down of white supremacy, please, Taylor, is, well, what's going to make me special? And the answer is nothing. You are unique and you are wonderful, but you are not special. And one of the reasons we have Cult Memoir Book Club is because I used to just tell people, read 5 cult memoirs in a row, and you will see. You will clock the patterns, and you will see that it's not different. So, which also means no matter what the experts think about me, like, I wrote a book using their words. You can't say that all cults are ultimately the same and then disagree when the girl from the super extreme cults makes comparisons. Can't have it both ways. By the way, there's one thing about habeas corpus that I will say for them. It goes both ways. Suspension of habeas corpus would mean we could make, for example, citizens' arrests on members of Congress and just never have to produce them ever again. We the people, friends. We the people. Okay, and then, like, lots of people are going through this, right? Like, maybe you're not going to find someone from your own exact cult or your own exact version, but we have a deconstruction community, right? We have a strong deconstruction community that I'm very proud of. I think millennials are really doing the hard work of ending generational trauma and sacrificing our bodies and minds to ending generational trauma, and I'm very proud of us. And also, that's why we drink wine, Gen Z. Book I was reading with a pink and yellow cover. Is it White Women Get Ready? My anti-racism book about post-traumatic stress syndrome. If not, I have videos on all my... Yeah, okay, you can get that in my shop if you are interested. You can also get White Women Get Ready in my shop on YouTube. This is a book about deconstructing post-traumatic mistress syndrome. White women deconstructing our whiteness and our history, and it's been very, very good. It's been very, very good. Okay, Germany bans the Kingdom of Germany movement. On May 13th, 2025, the German government banned the Kingdom of Germany, a major faction of the far-right Reichsbürger movement. The group, led by self-styled Peter Fitzek, aimed to establish a counter-state with its own institutions, rejecting Germany's legitimacy. Authorities cited the group's anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and criminal economic activities as threats to the democratic order. And as someone who studied abroad in Germany, they do not mess around, those Germans. Like, they are having no dice with Nazis. And I'm proud of them. Um, Lifetime's The 13th Wife explores polygamous cult escape. Lifetime's upcoming two-part movie, The 13th Wife Escaping Polygamy, premieres on May 31st and June 1st. The film stars Felicity Huffman as Rena Chenoweth, recounting her life as former wife of manipulative polygamous cult leader Ervil LeBaron. This narrative delves into the psychological toll of her indoctrination and escape, highlighting the resilience required to break free from such oppressive situations. Wow. I don't like movies, and I just don't need to see cult documentaries anymore. I understand them, but I think I will watch this one. Them LeBarons. All right, so for June book club, we are reading The Secret Practice by Joelle Temraz, and I really love this book, enough so that I made a whole video book of it because she doesn't have an audio. That's available in my Patreon, and shortly I'm going to have copies to sell from her. This is a book that is both a yoga cult and a 1-1 cult, so it has like a very important place in understanding cults. You can join us at Cult Book Club anytime you like. It is the $10 membership level of my Patreon. We also do Cult Theory Book Club. So this Wednesday, the second Wednesday at 6:30 EST to 8, we got together and we discussed Guinevere Turner's When the World Didn't End. And then next week, we will be getting together to discuss the midsection of Alexandra Stein's Love, Terror, and Brainwashing. So we do a theory book for a whole quarter, and then we do a different memoir every month. And I'm going to start having those memoirs available for sale here, and also just doing snippets of them all the time. So if you can't afford to be in the book club or doesn't work the time, you'll still be able to follow what we are doing. So we're going to have new books after we climax the year with Tia Leving's A Well-Trained Wife in a few months in September. And podcasts. We didn't record podcasts this week because life. So there'll be a blank week next week, but I have two podcasts, Hey White Women, where White Woman Whisperer and I get together and knit and crochet and deconstruct white supremacy like the cult that it is. You can also watch those on YouTube or Patreon, like watch us. But they should be wherever you get your podcasts. And I also have a podcast called Cults and the Culting of America. And it is just like my channels on here, but with guests and a pretty amazing co-host. So come check that out, like, subscribe. I'm on my 8th TikTok account if you're following the drama. Also do Cult Book Club once a month or Cult Happy Hour once a month in College Park, Maryland. If you are anywhere near that and would like to join us, you can email admin@uncultureyourself.com. We will get you added to the list. Next Saturday, which is the day before my birthday, it's Memorial Day weekend, I am throwing an open party because Mr. Knitting Cult Lady is graduating from college, and he had the very coolest award for being the best student in the plant science department. That came with a check. I'm having a party. I do have a link tree. It's in the bio. And that's, my friends, is what we have for today. And now for some nitpicking. I have done absolutely nothing this week but like finish commissions that are already sent off and make earrings. So I have now in all of my shops, except on Insta, some fringe belief earrings to add to the circular logic earrings, the fuzzy logic earrings, and the mermaid tail earrings. This is one of my love bomb collars. This is actually in my TikTok shop if somebody else wants to own it. I've had to make a deal with myself that I gotta rotate things if I want to keep creating. Otherwise, Mr. Knitting Cult Lady is gonna divorce me. And we're about to celebrate our 10th anniversary. Yeah, yes. And then what I have to show you is what I'm doing right now. So I have this jumpsuit and it's fine, but like I don't wear khaki green in the summer. So I'm making it a fall thing by putting big sweater arms on it. And that is what I'm doing with that. I also, of course, made this scarf again This is a scarf that Mr. Knitting Cult Lady brought me from his study abroad to Kenya. That was a very poorly disguised Mormon missionary trip to someone else's cult, evangelical cult that they started in Kenya. It's fascinating. Saw the pictures and I was like, white saviors building a dam. Oh no, this is a mission trip. Uncultured is still very honored to have been listed for the 3rd year in a row, which is all the years it's existed, on Goodreads list for Women's History Month. And this time they gave me a nice shot right under Michelle Obama's photo of her book. And that's what I've got for today. Thank you all for listening to my weekly cult situation report. I'm Danielle, a scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership. Have a day.